And Secretary Yellen, you've heard from both Senator Wyden and me today about the significant pain Americans are suffering because of inflation that has accelerated and become broad-based following the enactment of the American Rescue Plan last year. Democrats are claiming that Republicans are trying to raise taxes. Nothing could be further from the truth, when the reality is that as we speak, the Democrats are trying to negotiate a new massive plan that would raise taxes significantly. Do you believe that it would be prudent fiscal policy to increase taxes or engage in more stimulus spending with an economy facing the prospects of stagflation?
Senator Crapo, thank you for that question. As I indicated in my response to Senator Wyden, I believe there's a lot that Congress can do to ease the cost burdens that households are experiencing. With respect to energy, the administration has done everything that they can to bring down energy costs, for example, through an historic release of 1 million barrels a day from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, and energy prices, gas prices, while very high, have risen a lot. They would be higher without that. But Putin's war in Ukraine is having impacts on energy and food prices globally. We're not the only country that's experiencing inflation. You can see that in virtually every developed country around the world. What Congress can do and what the Biden administration would like to see is investments in programs like lowering prescription drug costs, investing in clean energy and renewables that would free our dependence on global oil markets, which are subject to geopolitical risk and could bring down utility bills, affordable housing, help for childcare expenses that would enable higher labor force participation, medical costs. And these are ways that the Congress and the administration can address, bring down some of the costs that households face. And it's appropriate to pay for it, or more than pay for it, to have deficit reduction. We're supportive of deficit reduction and think that asking high-income taxpayers and corporations to pay their fair share is the right way to finance those investments.
And what I heard you say is that it is okay to raise taxes right now and that it is proper to have more stimulus spending to deal with this crisis. I just have to say I disagree with you on that. What I also didn't hear you say was that we should increase our production, our domestic energy production, rather than depressing our domestic energy production. Do you continue to believe that the President's policies with regard to reducing our capacities to develop our own oil and gas reserves and potential is the appropriate approach to this? You mentioned taking from our strategic petroleum reserves, which I think weakens us, but you didn't mention increasing our domestic production of energy.
Well, oil production in the United States fell during the pandemic. I think that oil producers didn't anticipate the strength of the recovery and the fact that oil prices would recover. And they certainly do have incentives now to increase oil production. They're sitting on thousands of leases on federal lands that they have not yet drilled, and certainly can do so.
But the permits for proceeding on those leases are not being facilitated. I mean, the President's executive orders have shut down the Extel pipeline. They have stopped the issuance of more leases. They've stopped the progress on the permitting of those leases, stopped the offshore oil production. The fact is we were energy independent, and now we are not, and it's not the result of the failure of our capacity.
You know, we may be energy independent, and we're actually exporting oil, but we're part of global oil markets, which are subject to geopolitical influences, and given the global nature of these markets, it's virtually impossible for us to insulate ourselves from shocks like the ones that are occurring in Russia.